New Jersey Cannabis Microbusiness Licenses. Hello, I'm Tom Howard, a lawyer with a collateral base and host of Cannabis Legalization News, with an episode about a very important license type that hopefully is coming to your state soon. And if you want more content about cannabis license, operations in the industry, and policy updates, hit that like button and subscribe. Click that bell to find out when updates come out about your state cannabis laws. New Jersey Cannabis Microbusiness Licenses. It's an intriguing possibility for small business entrepreneurs in the Garden State. What do I mean by that? Well, quite often the industry crowds out non-corporate operators because the high operating costs and non-stop access to capital needs of the cannabis industry. A microbusiness license type can let a Main Street business, basically one that is $10 million or less, get access into the cannabis space. You may be spitting out whatever you are drinking right now and upset that the cannabis space can cost $10 million, but that would be if you stacked the microbusiness licenses and had a completely vertically integrated micro operation. Maybe you just want to operate a dispensary as a microbusiness. That is, until you try to stock your shelves. Long story short, growth and expansion into a vertical operation often happens in the cannabis industry, outside of Washington State. So your microbusiness dispensary may want to keep its micro grow in year 2 and keep raising that capital. Now let's talk about what goes into a New Jersey cannabis microbusiness license. These licenses are a reduced version of one of the 4 available classes of licenses in New Jersey, except that delivery and distribution look like they will all be microbusinesses. The microbusiness licenses include additional protections to New Jerseyans, giving them leverage to enter the cannabis industry, even the local players. Plus, it prohibits the big players like Trulieve or Cresco from operating as a micro-business. These are the main points of the microbusiness license in New Jersey. 10% of the dispensaries, the growers, the processors, and the wholesalers need to go to micro-businesses. 25% of the total. That takes into account that the distribution and the delivery licenses will probably all be micro businesses. They also have a 2-year New Jersey residency requirement. That might get challenged in court. Plus, 51% local ownership. We always say cannabis is local here on Cannabis Legalization News, and New Jersey took that to heart in their micro-business license. Now, you cannot have any license ownership overlap. Like I said, Cresco is not going to get a micro-business license. So if you own a regular license for a dispensary or a grow or a wholesaler in New Jersey, you can't also have a micro-business license. Finally, 10 employees or less. That's it. And now we're going to break down these 4 different types of those micro businesses that are there, the size, the scope, and what types of cash flows you can expect so that you understand how much you really need to be able to be competitive in getting one of these micro businesses. I anticipate there being a lot of interest in these micro businesses when they come out. Let's go over the types of New Jersey cannabis microbusiness licenses available and their size requirements. First, Class 1 cannabis growers. A microbusiness can grow cannabis with a canopy area no greater than 2,500 square feet, 24 feet high, or 1,000 plants. Sounds like what you would have is essentially a 4,000 square foot grow, because you'd have a 2,500 square foot footprint and you could double stack it if it has to be 24 feet high, and then you bump up against your 1,000 plant limit. Class 2, cannabis processors or manufacturers. A microbusiness can process no more than 1,000 pounds of dried cannabis per month. Class 3, cannabis wholesalers. A microbusiness can wholesale no more than 1,000 pounds of dried cannabis or its equivalent amount in other forms per month. Class 4, cannabis distributor, all of them. Class 5, cannabis retailers. A microbusiness can acquire for retail sale no more than 1,000 pounds of dried cannabis or equivalent amount in other forms per month. Class 6, delivery, all, and no microbusinesses for testing. Before we dig into the fun stuff about how much money you could make and therefore how much money these licenses should be worth on paper and how much you should actually raise to be able to build them appropriately, let's break that down a little bit. As we dive into the fun stuff, how much money is that? These are all pro forma ballpark figures. For example, a 2,500 square foot grow should be able to get the industry average of 40 grams per square foot, so about 220 pounds per harvest. But just a second there. The micro growers also have additional requirements, you see. They could grow 24 feet high, or 1,000 plants in total. A plant needs about 4 square feet. Dual level systems, they're going to be more expensive, by the way. You could have a vertical 1,000 plant canopy taking up approximately 4,000 square foot. Now granted, that's going to push up the price. However, it'll also push up your yields, perhaps up to 352 pounds per harvest. Now, not all of that is premium flower, of course. And you might be wholesaling that premium flower at $3 grand a pound. It might be $3 grand a pound. Of course, your trim ratio, that means like how much is going to go to the extractor versus how much is going to go into the bag or wherever you're selling your eighths. It's going to be about 30 to 50%. And that's one of the reasons why you need this processor license. Because what happens after you trim this 300-ish pounds of cannabis? What are you going to do with all that trim? You don't have a processor's license. You're going to have a contract with the processor or get a processor's license. If we're going to do $3,000 a pound of your flower, trim, what does that go for? $150 to $400 a pound? Yeah, you're going to be booking, you know. Probably about $500,000 per harvest, and on average, you're going to get 4 or 5 harvests a year. You're going to project that you're going to get 6, but you're not going to get 6. 4.5 is more in the industry average. So let's say you get 4, you're going to be $1 million of premium flower wholesale, and substantially lower than that for what would go to the processor, all your trim. Now these processors, if they're allowed to do 1,000 pounds a month, they could probably be buying cannabis trim from more than one grower, maybe up to 3 growers, before they're going to hit that. You see, if you're harvesting 300 pounds of cannabis a month and 50% of it, 150 pounds, and it wouldn't be a month, it would be per harvest, it'd probably be every 2 to 3.5 months, depending on the strain. That means that you're going to have enough where this processor is not going to go up against their limits. They might be buying the trim from more than one grower. And that's okay. I mean, once they get up to that 1,000 pounds a month, sure. And this is where it gets a little interesting because we don't know how they're going to define that 1,000 pounds yet. The processing. Now, it's one thing to have a trim ratio and to say, all right, well, 30% of that weight is going to be trim. That's cool. How does that equivalent to a pound of cannabis? That's something the regulators are going to answer for us, because that extract is going to get thrown into an extractor, and then at the end of the day it's going to be a vape pen or a gummy, something like that. That's when it's measured in grams, not pounds. So there's going to be some math, and look forward to how much you're going to have that be from the state of New Jersey. That'll make it a little bit easier to build out your pro formas on that. After that, I'm going to skip how much money you can make from the wholesaling. I don't understand that business model yet. We'll have to see it in action. Let's get to the retailers. A Class 5 dispensary is selling up to 1,000 pounds of cannabis a month. That's the limit for the microbusiness. We still need to know how they're going to define that pound, how many edibles equals a pound. It's easy with flour. A pound of flour is a pound. Your retailer's retail price might be approaching $5,500 a pound for the first couple of years when the supply is really tight. And let's say it's 500 pounds a month of cannabis flower and 500 pounds a month of processed materials, vape pens and edibles and all that. And if you look at Marijuana Business Daily's fact book, you'll see that the market's about 50% flower and about 50% everything else. You're selling 500 pounds of cannabis a month at $5,500 a pound. Well, that comes out to about $2.75 million. And that's on 500 pounds of flour. And so it could be $5 million a month. There's no way that micro dispensary is going to hit that. But if you're going to sell 1,000 pounds of cannabis product, at $50 to $70 an eighth, that adds up. I doubt most retailers will hit that number, but you can see the micro license is not so small. With millions of dollars on the line and the need for partners all over the supply chain to ensure your cannabis can go to farm to processor and get some retail shelf space, you need to know why you might want to budget $10 million for this enterprise. If you want help evaluating your business, planning it, forming it, organizing it, and the rest of the stuff that I do on a daily basis, you should visit me at Cannabis Industry Lawyer and click on one of the Get Started buttons so we can bring local cannabis businesses to the Garden State. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, click subscribe, and tune in on Wednesdays and Sundays for cannabis legalization news. Until next time.